The day is finally here, and Rathgricy has been released. I finally did my Royal Guard quest line and unlocked Rathgricy. Now, of course, we have to take our time setting her up, gotta make her look good, get the right costume going. But first things first is we can check out the new BCC boxes, see if we want to decide to get any. I did decide to get the bigger box to get all the options available, as this worked out better for myself and my needs. But if you don't necessarily need the job XP potions to upgrade a Crusader or anything like that, you can preview the boxes and what they have inside prior to purchasing them. But the two bigger boxes either offer a +10 sword or a +12 sword, some starter gear, also some rune options, and enchantment options for you just to kind of get started as Rathgricy right away. If you don't have any gear available, maybe you're a magic user and just want to get started with a physical DPS for the first time. So for me and my needs, I decided to get the bigger box, use up those XP potions, get my Crusader quest lines out of the way, and finally work on the new hero class. I also used the job XP pot to super speed myself and get all the skills unlocked. Now comes the fun part. We gotta get these runes. If you don't have experience with heroes, the way they work is that they have a passive as part of their skill tree. And the only way to level it is by getting the second line on their runes in order to get to max level 7. You need 3-star runes and 3 S runes. So let's get started with that. So I decided to go over to Moon Lake this time. We're going to see if it brings me luck on this one. I did some identifying, working on the S runes first. Now I did luck out getting 1 extra line on the initial rune pack from the box. So I do have to work on the rest of them, but that's still 5 to work on. If you haven't had to work on runes before, either for a hero or maybe for your main job, generally what you want to do is advancement from lower runes up into S runes. And then with the S runes you have, you can do directional smelting. With directional smelting, you transform other S runes or star runes that you simply don't need or aren't using from other multi-jobs you're not utilizing, and turn them into the runes of a job that you are using. In this case, what I usually do is I try to skip not using runes of what I consider my main jobs. So my main jobs are Saint, Begetter, and I am working on a Dora multi-job. So I'm trying to skip getting rid of those. Also trying to skip my Novice Guardian runes, just to keep them available for myself. Because when you have the runes available for yourself, you're able to use the other rune options in order to optimize them. Which is how I'm going to try and build up my runes for Rathgricy right now. However, I need Rathgricy runes first. And along the way, I am going to try and save any runes that seem to be upgrades or maybe new runes or anything like that that I don't have before, and get rid of the ones that I simply don't need. Setting up runes is sometimes the most tedious part, but it is a necessary part to building out your hero. As you can see, there's a lot of identifying, and then I'm able to use rune replacement in order to single target an S rune that I want the ones I don't need to turn into. And then I eventually use attribute synergy to hopefully get the extra line. As this is kind of just the very time-consuming part of min-maxing your runes. I had decided to swap to star runes for a bit to change things up, as I got a little tired of just looking at the S runes. Since this is quite tedious. And with the S runes, I do like to look through them, see if there's anything I need, save and favorite anything that I could save for my other multi-jobs. Even sometimes for multi-jobs I may not be using currently at this time. And I will usually save hero runes from other heroes, you know, just in case I want to build them up later. as these runes are kind of difficult to get. And you're also better off favoriting things if you're just not sure or on the fence about, as you can always unfavorite and then burn them later. When I specifically got this new dorm rune, so this is actually a new star dorm rune for the moving bombardment. I was actually so surprised because it was a double gold. Not only did I get the extra line that it moves, but I got a perfect on the coefficient for the neutral damage, which is insane and extremely difficult to get. So this was an extremely, extremely rare one to get, and I saved this immediately. This is great because, like I said earlier, I am working on a Dora multi-job right now. And this was a really, really welcome surprise. As sometimes also with these big patches, there are these class balance patches. And with Dorum came a couple of buffs and a couple of changes through runes and through cards that we can check out. Now, while I did end up identifying all my star runes, it's possible I might have not needed to, but I kind of just went for it. And I always laugh because I always get really good bard runes. And of course, I'm a dancer. Of course, I'm a dancer. And I always get the solar rune. That's like I'm a lunar. Why? So those are usually instant smelted for me. So I did a lot of directional smelting for the stars. Saved up anything that might be interesting for later. And whenever I see these stars on these hero runes and I look, and sometimes it's just a really good roll on the top line, and it's like, oh man, I really hope this is it. And it's sometimes it's just not. But sometimes it is. I had actually looked out pretty much with my star runes. From directional smelting, I had already gotten 2 of them. That means I was going to go to rune replacement and then use that function in order to get the final one. So remember, you can click up to do multiple at a time as well. So first I did a tribute synergy to use up what I had prior to trying to use rune replacement. And I was really surprised I got a really good one using a tribute synergy. So for my star runes, I lucked out really, really well. Much better than I had ever expected. So I made sure to favorite it, put it into the rune circle for the time being just to hang out. And then I would figure out the rest of the attribute runes later. Star runes actually went much quicker than I expected, and we had to go back to S runes. I did a lot of identifying and a lot of advancement up. I decided not to record because it had taken so long. And then I went back to directional smelting. And again, I'm trying to single target through rune replacement, and then with the ones that I have, I move over to attribute synergy to try to get those better rolls. And it always hurts when I get that gold star, and it's only on the top line. And then I'm not sure if it's worse when I get a silver star. Had a lot more runes to identify and work through and advancement and get there and appraise. In retrospect, I probably should have done the dusty runes last, but I can't go back now. And it's always these S runes that give me the harder time. The same thing happened with me and my Nidhogg. My Nidhogg gave me the hardest time so far. Like, this seems quite taxing on my Rathgricy, but I actually had a much harder time on my Nidhogg. I actually ended up spending a lot of extra BCC that I did not want to on my Nidhogg. And I had a bit of a flub that I have spoken about on stream before, I'm pretty sure, that I had lost 2 runes and I had to re-roll them. And that cost me another 2 months of trying to used the weekly runes, a couple of extra runes, and then I waited till there was another week of the BCC rune value box that showed back up. That helped me finally finish that up. So runes can definitely be the most taxing part of building out these hero classes. While I did end up identifying all the runes that I had, I actually did have an easier time building up my Rathgricy, because compared to my Nidhogg, where, as I said earlier, I don't like burning through what I consider my main job runes. For Nidhogg, I actually did. I actually burned through a lot of runes. If you go to my original Building Nidhogg stream, you could see I actually did some of that. I had a really bad time on my initial stream not hitting any of those extra lines. So I had to do a lot of that rolling and re-rolling off stream, and it took days. It was a test of patience. And I had a really nice surprise getting a double gold star Epic Spears Protection rune, which was absolutely fantastic. I think this rune it's a really good rune, super strong, and I really lucked out on getting a double gold star on this one. I definitely went to replace it immediately and unfavorite the old one, as now it's up for grabs to burning into hopefully what should be the final rune that I need for this job class. After some time, some more advancement smelting, working my way up, I needed this Goddess of War rune to become the Goddess of War, and we finally got there. And we had finally got there, and then I could finally take a break from looking at these runes. After this, I was so happy. It was so satisfying. You know, Rathgricy is such a cool character. I love her kit. I loved her kit ever since first testing her on CBT. And if it wasn't obvious from the initial video, I'm so excited to work on her. I didn't get to build her fully yet. I just did some kind of for fun playing and testing with her, setting her up very basically for a PSR run, which if you've seen the highlight clips over in the shorts or over on TikTok, I had made a little highlight reel. In case you hadn't checked it out yet, I'm going to put the video links over in the pinned comment. It'd be super appreciated if you could check them out. But we had some fun runs of just some 4 fun runs of basically a 5 Rathgricy run and a 4 Rathgricy run. And when we first started, we were first trying to do the mechanics because we weren't sure just how strong the heals were and how strong, you know, her anti-fatal was. And then we realized really quickly that as long as feathers were available, we could just honestly ignore everything. The whole time I was actually extremely tired that night. And I was kind of just running on auto. But it was still a lot of fun. It was still just a lot of fun, just kind of, you know, playing her and finally unlocking her, working on her, getting it moving along. And even with me being half asleep, I only died once. Because I had used up my feathers just before a meteor. But as you can see here, with a little bit of longer clips, you know, she barely takes damage. And, you know, PSR right now is like considered the endgame content. You know, and this is like barely, like I was barely wearing anything. I was not wearing anything special. When she disables the wormlings, apparently like when they explode, it barely does damage. There's a couple of things to be aware of, like for instance, if you have her holy buff on auto, it will auto target everyone in your party. And it can be what I would say is a DPS loss. So you want to manual that on yourself. Okay. And if you have multiple targets is when you want to use the spirit summoning. Otherwise, you can just kind of be on auto with the feathers for the most part, at least with PvE a bit. You know, just be careful, be mindful about what you have to do. You can use also her divine judgment for her divine verdict when she's in the air as an iframe. So keep that in mind if you also want to ignore mechanics in other dungeons, as it's a little similar to Thanatos with his phases where he's off screen, where even though she's not off screen, it's a very similar type of iframe, which is like an immunity frame, is what they say like in other games. So keep that in mind. She's just very, very easy. She's very, very, you know, easy to grasp, easy to move around with, and just a blast to play. Just a blast to play. So I really hope everyone who has unlocked her, who plans to unlock her, I wish you the best. Let me know how your experience is. If you have unlocked her, you know, did you fully build her up? Are you know, I still have to work on my weapon. I still have to work on my weapon as I'm narrating this video. So I'm going to work on that next and, you know, figure out her gear a little bit. I have to gather up all my physical enchants and physical ancient gear and get that sorted, and hopefully have a nice showcase maybe upcoming very soon for you. So thanks so much for checking this out with my journey building my Valkyrie.